What up, everybody? In March 2024, it was announced that a new Power spinoff was in development, Power Origins, a prequel featuring the lives of young Ghost, James St. Patrick, and Tommy Egan. And even though this spinoff is said to feature Ghost and Tommy, we also know that Kanan will play a key part in this series as well, as we're currently watching the series Raising Kanan, featuring Kanan and his family, the Thomas family. In Origins, we'll see the roles reversed as Kanan will be raising young Ghost James St. Patrick and Tommy Egan up in the streets to be gangsters. It was once said in Power by Jukebox that Kanan raised up Ghost from when he was a kid to be a gangster. Because of that, we know that Jukebox will also be in the series in some capacity, because both Ghost and Tommy knew Jukebox. Either though it was uncertain about how good their relationship with Jukebox was and if she was around the whole time or not. Ghost was definitely shook when he found out that it was Jukebox who was holding Tariq for ransom, and Tommy called Jukebox a crazy bitch when Ghost asked if he remembered her. But the fact that Ghost had to ask Tommy if he remembered Jukebox could also be a clue that she wasn't that close to either Ghost or Tommy. Also keeping in mind that Kanan once told Snaps and Pops that he likes to keep work and family separate. And because it's likely Jukebox won't get into the drug game, that could be part of the reason why. But I also think there's a chance that Ghost knew Jukebox better than Tommy, because out of all the times Jukebox mentioned Ghost, I don't ever remember her saying anything about Tommy. Correct me if I'm wrong. Power Season 1 started off with Ghost and Tommy at the top of the food chain in the drug game. At the point, they were the biggest drug dealers in New York City. While Kanan started off Season 1 in prison and wasn't introduced until Episode 3 when Sean went to visit him. So as OG Power started off with Ghost and Tommy at the top of the game, in Power Origins, they will be starting at the bottom. But one parallel I can see being the same is Kanan starting out Origins in prison, like he started out OG Power in prison, and not being introduced until Episode 3. Because in real life, in 1994, 50 Cent was sentenced to 3 to 9 years in prison for drug charges, but instead served 6 months in a boot camp and earned his GED. And I think this could potentially be how Raising Kanan ends, with Kanan getting locked up and going to prison, or possibly even going to a boot camp for 6 months, like 50 Cent did in real life. Either that or being sentenced about a year in prison, with Origins starting with a time jump of about 6 months, or however long Kanan's locked up from the end of Raising Kanan. And when Kanan's first introduced in Origins, after getting out of boot camp or prison, I think there will be a different actor playing young Kanan than Mekhi Curtis, an actor who's bigger and more physically intimidating, more like the real-life 50 Cent, who's about 6 feet tall, compared to Mekhi Curtis, who's shorter than both Rock and Jukebox. And in Power, Kanan was a lot bigger than Jukebox. So a time jump between Raising Kanan and Origins while Kanan is in prison would be the best opportunity to introduce a new Kanan. After Kanan's death, when Tariq was watching the news report about what happened the night before, the news reporter said that Kanan had a long history of felony convictions, including drugs and weapons charges. We know that the drugs and weapons charge was when he went to prison when Ghost and Tasha set him up, and he went to prison for 10 years, because he got caught with both product and a gun in the car, according to Ghost. But the woman saying he has a long history of felony convictions does indicate that he had been arrested prior to when Ghost set him up. And that could have played a part in why Kanan chose to shoot it up with the cops rather than going back to prison, because the fact he had multiple priors, even predating to when he was arrested after being set up by Ghost and Tasha. So if Kanan does go to prison at the end of Raising Kanan, what would be the chain of events that leads up to this happening? And does this have any kind of impact on the fate of the rest of the Thomas family, Rock, Marvin, and Lou? Because the fact by the time that Origins timeline begins, the Thomas family will likely be out of the picture when it comes to the Southside Jamaica Queens drug game, because we know that Breeze will be running things at least from approximately 1996 to around 1998 when he is shot and killed by Ghost. So the rest of the Thomas family, other than Jukebox, could potentially still be around, or they could either be dead or in prison or in Witsec, or it's even possible that they moved on and set up shop in a different state after it got too hot for them on the south side. Maybe Kanan's arrest set that in motion to where the Thomas family moved on somewhere else like Baltimore or DC to set up trap. In real life, the chain of events that led to 50 Cent going to the boot camp for 6 months was 2 arrests. His first arrest, he got caught selling cocaine to an undercover officer, and the second arrest was 3 weeks later when police caught him with heroin, crack cocaine, and a pistol in his home. And the fact 50 Cent was caught with all that in his home is very interesting, considering Kanan just moved out of the trap house and Crystal has been pressing him about keeping his work and home life separate. And the way that 50 Cent got caught could definitely be similar to how Kanan goes down, especially if Crystal ends up being out of the picture and Kanan goes back to hustling out of where he lives. There could potentially be an undercover who gets thrown into the mix in Season 5 that could end up bringing Kanan down. Or the police could do a raid at his crib and find the gun and product. It could even be the same type of offense he had when he went to prison for those 10 years on drugs and weapon charges when he was set up by Ghost and Tasha. I think Unique will likely be the king of the South Side at the end of the 5th season of Raising Kanan. But I think he will start going by Breeze, because how Kanan gets locked up and how things end up getting so hot on the South Side to where the Thomas family either end up getting locked up, killed, going into Witsec, or moving somewhere else. And there will be a lot of questions still, especially within law enforcement, whether Unique is actually dead or alive. And I think this will be when he decides to change his alias from Unique to Breeze, keeping in mind his real name is Kadeem, and Unique is simply a nickname to begin with. Even though I'm convinced Unique is Breeze, and I give it like an 85 to 90% chance that it will be revealed that Unique is Breeze eventually. The only other scenario I could see where Breeze isn't Unique is when Kanan goes to prison, boot camp, wherever he could potentially end up going after he gets locked up at the end of Raising Kanan's series. And he meets Breeze in prison, and they decide to go into business together when they get out. And they get out and take over the South Side. And if Unique isn't Breeze, I could see them potentially going to war with Unique in Season 1 of Origins. Especially if Unique has anything to do with the deaths of Rock, Marvin, or Lou. But I think it's more likely that Unique is Breeze. He will end Raising Kanan as the king of the South Side, changing his name to Breeze. Kanan gets locked up and holds it down and doesn't snitch on Unique. And because of that, Unique has a lot of respect for Kanan and holds the position of his number 2 for Kanan for when he gets released. Then soon after Kanan's release and Breeze puts him in position, Kanan will meet Ghost and Tommy, and we will begin to see their come-up story as they start out at the bottom of the Southside Jamaica Queens drug game. And there you have it. Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.